welcome back. I'm Tedward. Welcome to my driveway and welcome to the 2026 Land Rover Defender 130 V8 that I've been living with for the week. It's powered, of course, by a V8, a 5-liter supercharged JLR engine, which is ultra responsive and torque filled, 493 horsepower, of course going to all four wheels, and being the 130, this is the long boy. So back in the day, 130, a Defender 130, would have referenced its wheelbase being 130 inches axle to axle. Now it's more of a heritage term. This actually shares the same wheelbase, which is about 119 inches, as the Defender 110. They just extend the rear of the vehicle a little bit so you get more cargo space. That does impact the departure angle because the 110, obviously being shorter, gives you about 40 degrees of departure angle. This leads you down to about 28. But it does look especially handsome with the long body. One of my favorite things about this Defender is just the style. They really figured out how to embrace the original style of the Defender in the new iteration. And the best part, I think, is this incredibly flat, boxy rear end. It's broken up a little bit by the spare tire, so it doesn't actually look as boxy as it is. When you remove that, it's incredible when you see what it really looks like. It's like taking the wing off of a Countach or something. Jump in here first. So, with the third row up, cargo space is quite limited, but we knock these down a little bit. That's when this starts to open up and make a little more sense as a normal daily driver. It's probably not frequent that you're actually putting people back there all of the time. I think my only issue with this cargo space is that it does get a little tricky to lay them all flat. And I'm going to demonstrate to you why I prefer a second row bench, because when you knock these down, they don't go totally flat, and you always end up with this like cavernous space in the middle. It's why I opted for the second row bench in my GX460, because I like to load things in here. These also, they just don't go super duper flat, so you're always going to have a little bit of a ramp. Not the worst thing in the world, but just a thing to consider. They are quite comfortable seats, and in proper Land Rover fashion, you get nice armrests. And as luxurious as the leather in a Land Rover can be, this doesn't feel like a Range Rover. It feels more durable and rugged. You even got some of this kind of material here above the leather. So you don't feel like this thing is so precious that you can't romp on it and put stuff in it and use it. I like how industrial they made the doors with these hex bolts all around. I mean, there is definitely a feeling that this thing is meant to be used and abused, and I think that is the true mark of a Defender, because I've spent a lot of time in old school legit Defenders, and I'll tell you, there are no creature comforts. Let's get under the hood, because that's one of the coolest things. And if you notice, this is the hood release right here. You could, because of the way this door closes, you could release that while driving, except they put this guy in here. So my guess, this is just a hypothetical theory of what I think occurred. I think in a pre-production model of a Defender, a test driver knocked this up with his foot or something. Maybe he was going for a parking brake and he went for that. And they thought, oh my goodness, you could pretty easily open that hood accidentally with the door closed. So instead of redesigning this whole thing, which would be quite expensive, they just threw this guy into the door, so that way it blocks that from opening. Anyway, just a theory. If you work for Land Rover, please let me know what the thought process is behind that. The front of this thing is so mean. I love these headlights. I think the way these daytime running lights look too is just so mean. And under the hood, this is really cool because you've got the proper 5-liter JLR engine under here in the Octa. The Octa is great, but the Octa gets a BMW V8. And I have not yet driven that, and I'm not going to comment on it because that's not what we do here. But I will say I am always charmed by the correct engine in one of these vehicles that actually matches the brand. And this thing sounds outrageous. It's kind of the same thing that you would find in an F-type V8, which is great. The hood gets this awesome little texture here, kind of a throwback to the old school days, and this windscreen is quite vertical, but keep in mind that is not great for avoiding catching little rocks and pebbles on the highway, so you do need to make sure that you're properly staying back from vehicles, because if something does fly off a truck, that windscreen is gonna get nailed. And it's probably a very expensive windshield given the fact that it has all the little squiggles because it's one of those defroster windshields where it'll actually electrically remove ice by heating up just like your typical rear glass. So let me just start this up while we do the rest of this walk around because I think this engine sounds fantastic. That's so good. So if you kind of were an F-Type R guy and you're looking to get the family vehicle, this might be the two-car solution for you. You get an F-Type R and you get one of these. Gluing us to the road on these monster 22-inch wheels is a 275 section tire all around. Behind it on the front are some pretty massive brakes that absolutely inspire confidence. I have never once felt like this thing can't be brought down in a hurry. The other thing is this is on a great air suspension. And while yes, you can raise and lower it for off-road stuff, it's also really convenient to raise and lower it when you're loading the vehicle. So let's say I want this thing to go all the way up. I can hit this button inside. Still going. Look at that. Look at that. So let's say I'm just putting something heavy in and I don't want to have to put it in awkwardly, or the opposite, I want it to be really low. I can adjust the height of this so easily for whatever's convenient to me. I mean, really, I think what's so cool about this is when you do put it up, it is just so tall. It looks like it's on stilts. But then we can do the opposite and lower this thing, and it lowers relatively quickly. I mean, this is doing some serious work to get back on the ground. And then we get the Carolina squat. She's not quite tucked, but that is mighty low. One of my favorite design features of this Defender is this rear barn door. It's very slight and sleek, and I love how thin this frame is. It harkens back to the old days. It really does remind me of a proper Defender. And this taillight design is A+. It's the little things, and I am obsessed with the way this thing looks when the lights are on. If I select the off-road ride height, I can get this thing to lift up. And now the whole truck has lifted up mighty high. So that's going to increase our ground clearance, so we're not going to destroy anything, and we could wade through some serious water. And that's the thing, a Land Rover is genuinely designed for the proper off-road use. The only thing that's a little bit of a misnomer on this are the tires and the wheels. These are nice wheels, so to put a 22-inch fancy boy wheel, it looks like a city thing. I'm sure it'll still do the job, but this is not on some wild all-terrain tire. So if you were to properly use this as such, I would assume you would have a second set of wheels and tires to pop on here that are going to actually do that work for you, because these are just street tires. So while the Defender's obviously very off-road capable, it's probably going to live more of its life at the soccer field with your family, but they're going to be comfortable. So let's take a look around inside and in the back seats. And let's get this sunshade back, introduce more light into the cabin, showing off this Alcantara headliner. These captain's chairs are ultra comfy. I feel like I'm in a stadium seating situation. But the best thing about the Defender is driving. It is such a joy to operate, and you're gonna have to pay for it, because let me take a look at this window sticker. All right, here we go. $128,510 after the $1950 destination charge. So these V8s, the P500 V8 starts at $123,900. Optional equipment, second row heated and cool seats, captain's chairs, $1,000. Take it, leave it. It depends how spoiled you want your children. Carpathian Gray. I'm plebeian, so I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but that is the color. The tow hitch receiver is $700. The Wi-Fi enabled with data plan 360, whatever. Ebony Windsor leather and Kravdat seats. I feel like I'm too poor to even know how to pronounce that. With ebony interior, that's a no-cost option. But what you do get with this is the 22-inch wheels, the air suspension, the 5-liter V8, all of the goods, man. This thing is fantastic. And The Meridian sound system, mwah, chef's kiss, A+. And that's something that Land Rover has always done incredibly well, is phenomenal sound systems. When you get in this vehicle, you are never wanting for more in the way of those types of luxuries. You always feel like you're being taken care of by a proper concierge. Of course, I've got CarPlay, I've got wireless charging, but I very rarely use it. I am currently plugged in over here and using this cubby above the glove box to keep my phone. That's nice. It's actually kind of out of the way and I don't need to use it because I have everything I need right here. Great storage solutions, cup holders, great, but this is my favorite thing because I like to put, say, my wallet or my AirPods or that case when I go into the gym, and I just throw it there and then tuck it away. Now it's not visible from the outside world. Please don't come steal my things. And you've also got this cubby down here. More charging as well. Listen to this. Such a good sound. That alone is worth upgrading over the inline 6 or the 4-cylinder for that matter. What I like about it is it's not that shouty. I know some people want more out of this, and it would be cool if this had some sort of trick exhaust that really cranked it up like an F-Type R. But it's still just leaves you wanting for a little bit more, but it's not leaving me unsatisfied. Anybody can do power though. The real differentiator with these Land Rovers is the steering and the suspension. Now when you drive a Range Rover, you start to realize you're getting a bargain because the only other way to get that sensation of a Range Rover is going way upstream to Rolls-Royce or Bentley. And while I don't know that I would consider this a Rolls-Royce level suspension, it is very plush and it is definitely doing everything it can to insulate me from the world around me. And somehow it's also completely capable of doing some off-road madness. The steering, while maybe a little bit vague, it's weighted perfectly and it's so direct. I know this is not a competitor, but last week I spent my time with a Kia Telluride, and the Kia Telluride is a very impressive package for the money. And it basically looks like the budget Defender, or some people call it the Temu Defender. There are certain aspects of that Kia that really do the job correctly, but I'm telling you, when you drive a car like that and a car like this back to back, you see where all the money goes. And you can definitely tell that it is not a fully formed imitation. It does a good job, but there's no substitute for the real deal. Look at this bad boy. It's fantastic. Been locking that gate, otherwise we would have been able to climb the little mountain over there. But honestly, I do worry about that in this vehicle because it has nice wheels, and sure, it's got some sidewall, but they're not protruding out too far beyond the wheel. I don't want to be responsible for trashing these nice 22s. They look good. And that's the thing about these Defenders is, are they hot boy off-roaders or hot boy city cars? And it's a piece of it that feels a little more city car. just don't need to lean that far into the throttle to get everything you want out of this engine. And I gotta tell you, it's not as fast as I thought it would be. The first couple launches, you go, all right, let's go. But then you think, oh, it's going to keep pulling, and it kind of falls off. It's a 5.2 second to 60, which is certainly no slouch, but it's not a complete rocket ship. It's just that the character of this engine matches the suspension. It matches the driving experience perfectly. Because one of the things that I thought fell short, and again, I'm not comparing them as like actual cross-shopping competitors, but one of the things that really fell short in that Kia Telluride was that 4-cylinder turbo. It really needed to wind out and boost. And this is the thing I love, that automakers like this are still putting higher displacement supercharged V8s in things, because you get that torque on tap immediately when you ask for it. You're not waiting for a turbo to spool, and you've got some displacement to actually get the work done, even if there's no forced induction actively working at the moment you ask for it. Now, as somebody who's never owned a Land Rover or a Range Rover, this is still a little foreign to me. They absolutely gave me what I wanted in terms of physical buttons and controls. It's just that it's a little confusing, right? You've got simple buttons too, right? You've got auto, great. So it's gonna throw on my AC. I've got dual zone climate control. But if I wanna change, let's say the temperature, I use this knob. And then if I want my cooled seat, I press this and turn to the left. And then that's going to engage my ventilated seat. Lovely. But you kind of have to know what you're doing. Otherwise, you get a little confused. Now, fan speed, okay? Auto is going a little crazy right now. For fan speed, I've got to hit this button, which converts this into the fan speed. And then that is going to turn that down. But that's not the kooky part. The kooky part is when you hit this button, this knob now becomes your drive mode selector. So your HVAC controls go from your temperature, your heated or ventilated seats, to also selecting whether or not you're in the mud, in the snow, in the sand, in the water. I mean, it is kind of funny how much they've crammed into this, and you've got to give them credit for using a very tiny space. The rear view is great, but it is blocked a little bit by that spare tire, so you can always pop that on, and now you've got the camera giving you the full view of what's behind you. What a legend. Trying to get this thing out of the hole correctly is kind of funny. Good Lord, this thing will just smoke tires. Ugh, I love it so much. But I'm not here to fight with a tow truck. You never know. Tow truck drivers are either the friendliest, most courteous in the world, or they drive them like Kia boys on the Long Island Expressway. You just don't know what you're getting, and I tend not to risk it. I'm actually going to load this up right now with my bike and go cycling with my buddy. So let's do that, and then we'll get it out on the highway and see how it cruises, because I've been commuting in this thing, and it has been so enjoyable. Incredibly smooth. You could actually huck this around a little harder than I was. Currently, because we're living with the vehicle, I've got my bike in the back. I don't want that sloshing around, nor would I want that hitting anything leather. I do have a packing blanket back there. I do a pretty good job of making sure none of that stuff ever interacts with expensive materials to protect the vehicles and respect them as such. But this is so much fun and engaging, even with the paddle shifters. This 8-speed auto does such a great job of the upshifts. It really does hit those gears hard and fast. Even the downshifts are nice. There's definitely more than you need from any off-road you're getting, but because this is the V8 version, it's just a little extra, and I love it. On the highway, it is very blunt, so while it's well insulated and relatively quiet, there is still wind noise, just because one can only be a brick silently so much. You're gonna have some wind noise, but it's not intrusive, and I don't mind it. I've really enjoyed living with this on the highway. The mirrors are very sleek and perfect for the trails. They're very narrow. I think maybe they're a little too narrow, because sometimes there are things I don't see. It'd be nicer if those were larger, but I understand the intent. So you do just need to make sure you've adjusted them appropriately. Looking forward to this one, but our last minute Kia friend decided they needed this on-ramp too. Some mid-range torque though, watch this. I think that's the real benefit of this supercharger too, is there's no waiting. It's always there for you. The throttle response in this vehicle is incredible. The only thing I've noticed that is maybe a detractor in the vehicle around this Prius is I find myself very occasionally getting behind the car in terms of steering, keeping it in a straight line. There are times where I find myself oscillating a little bit naturally and like trying to catch up to the car. And it's very minute. This is not some wild weaving scenario. I just have noticed it in very subtle situations. And I thought, I just need to get centered again. And I'm maybe moving a half inch either direction. It's not much, but if I'm being completely honest, there are times when that occurs with this Defender. It may just be a symptom of being a little soft. So far, I've put just about 300 miles on this over the week, and I've averaged 18.8 miles per gallon. Almost all of the full throttle pulls I have done have been with you in this video. So I typically like to see just how good I can do fuel economy wise in vehicles. It's just a habit. Maybe it's just because I was brought up a bit frugal by my parents. I do love driving fast, and I'll give it a few squirts, but if I'm driving to work, I don't just go and pour fuel down these cylinders. So that's a pretty honest 18.8 or 19 miles per gallon that this is getting. I think you could eke out a little more. It's EPA rated for 19 highway. On occasion, if I go through this menu, let's see, where are you? It'll tell me how good I'm doing, my energy impact and all that good stuff. Driving style. Saying 19.1 on this particular trip. It'll give me a driving score. A lot of times my driving score is in the 90s. It'll give me like 97%. I want to know what 100 would look like. And in those scenarios, I was getting over 21 miles per gallon. So there are things you can do with this that are pretty impressive fuel economy wise, because This does about the same fuel economy as my Lexus GX460, and I can assure you my Lexus GX460 can do none of the performance things this can do. I know I brought up the Kia Telluride, but just as an example, that's obviously not a real competitor. The real competitor to this Defender, I think, is the G-Wagon, because the appearance, the stance, the essence of the Defender gives off a little bit of the same vibe as a G63. And while the G63 is probably more aggressive in a straight line, and it can probably get out of the hole a heck of a lot faster, and it's still outrageously capable off-road, this is the vehicle I would choose between the two if you were to give me the two keys. Now, I would maybe miss having the vault closing doors and the door locks in the G63, and I like a G-Wagon, but this is proper luxury. For whatever reason, the G-Wagon became this status symbol despite its pretty tank-like handling. It's not a very, I don't know how to say this nicely, but it's like not a very pleasant car to really be in all the time. For the bit, it's great, and I always enjoy driving it just because I think it's a treat and it's an experience. But if I was looking for proper luxury grand touring, the Defender, hands down, no questions asked, is the correct vehicle to choose. It may not have quite the same grunt and power, but I don't think it needs to. Every time I've launched a G-Wagon, I usually giggle and then just think, well, that was unnecessary. What are we doing here? This is crazy. Let's do a little pass by Garage 42 while we're here. Why not? We'll just go by the garage. This Defender, though, living with this has been a real treat. And I also think that it's a little softer on the appearance, on the personality that it's trying to portray. G-Wagon is a little more mafia. And while this certainly does look like Her Royal Majesty's Secret Service type vibe, especially in this color. Hello, boys. But it would be probably irresponsible of me not to mention quality and reliability of the Land Rover brand. Now, historically, that can be kind of the butt of the joke. And I think everybody has a friend or two or three who has an L322 story, or maybe a dozen L322 stories. There's good ones, there's bad ones. You got to be very selective when you're buying things used. Having one of these with a warranty is probably a very good idea. I would imagine all of the features that I love about this car, namely the air suspension, are things that could be incredibly expensive on the back end of a repair bill outside of a warranty. That could be very ugly. And that is something you need to take into consideration. But one thing I would also take into consideration is how many of those friends of yours with Range Rovers or Land Rovers that kept getting themselves into those situations went back again. That says something, because there's a reason they're going back. And maybe you look at it and think you're just watching your friend go back to their toxic ex and I can't believe they're so stupid. But maybe there's really something there. Maybe there's a really strong bond in a relationship. And when it's good, it's so good that it's worth the bad. And I obviously can't give you a reliability report on this vehicle in a week, because so far she's running. She's doing what she's supposed to do. We need to spend like years with it to really understand what that looks like. It is something to consider, but also consider the people you know who have owned one Range Rover probably have owned like a dozen. Like they can't stop themselves because they are that good. And one of the things I love about this brand is, as expensive as the vehicles can be, the comfort level and the suspension technology punches way above its weight. There's really no in between between the Range Rover, Land Rover brands and like Rolls-Royce. It's as close as you can get for like a quarter of the price, and it's so impressive. So I have just sincerely enjoyed my week with this vehicle. It drops under the radar just a little bit. All right, time to unload this bike and go for a ride. But the next natural step in the Defender review world, I think, is the Octa, and then to go look at the 90. My friend Will Thibodeau, or Lieutenant Lugnut from Captain Crankshaft, just bought an inline 6 Defender 90, and look at these cameras, they're good. Wow, I parked terribly. What a great camera system to tell me that I'm a clown. Okay, hang on, we'll redeem ourselves here. Every time I'm a hot shot in a new car, the camera systems tell me otherwise. That's the stuff, baby. Okay, the natural next step is to get into a Defender 90 with an inline 6 and a 90 with a V8. That's always a treat. But I really want to know, is the Octa all it's cracked up to be? People seem to really love them, and I'm sure they're justified in that. But there's something about this engine that really speaks to me because it feels properly authentic. The 130 is a long boy. It's maybe too big for some people, but if you are just living out in the suburbs in the country, this is gonna do you just fine. If you're trying to parallel park in Boston and New York all the time, this could get just a tiny bit tricky. Then again, if you're replacing your Suburban or your Tahoe, this is gonna feel like a small vehicle. And one of the greatest things about this Defender is because it's staying true to its off-road roots, it's really not that wide. It's able to get down the trail. It's able to get down that path without smashing into all the branches and trees along the way. But again, at $128,000 and change dollars, are you really gonna risk this thing on a trail, scratching up this paint? Maybe this is a bargain for you. Maybe it's you stretching the budget. For me, I just know that I want this to be pretty much as clean as possible all the time. So if I'm gonna do some proper off-roading, I might buy something that's just a little bit cheaper, that I care about a little less, but good Lord, this thing's fantastic. So anyway, let's get this bike out. I'm gonna go ride some trails. Don't worry, if you hate cyclists, that's why I drove all the way here, man. I'm not even gonna be on the road. Ooh, we got some big boy stuff happening over there. But thank you guys so much for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing. Don't forget to respect the drive, and I will see you in the next one.